Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? Today, I'll be chatting with writer-director John Evrenol, and we'll be chatting about his latest film, Sayara, a femme fatale story. If you're new here, my name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. And without any further ado, let's jump right in. You ready? Buckle up. Well, before we get into the making of Sayara, could you introduce yourself to our fellow Stardust and say a little bit about your film background?
Thank you for having me. My name is John Evrenol, although it's spelled as Can. It's pronounced as John because C is a J in Turkish, but people call me Can all the time, so no worries. I'm born and raised in Istanbul, Turkey. And then I studied a little bit in Canterbury and London. And now I'm still based in Istanbul with my 2 kids and my wife and doing independent horror films out of all places in Turkey. And yes, Sayara is my latest film from last year. We toured around 40 festivals. And only after I made the film, I realized how controversial and how triggering the content is compared to today's audiences and compared to today's platforms and everything. I just wanted to do something really rebellious from the heart. And we'll get into it. Also, recently I made another film, which I can tell you later about. Which I'm almost picture lock stage right now. We're gonna start sound and color very soon.
Very cool. Hell yeah, I'm excited to hear about that. Yeah, and Sayara is just the perfect continuation of your incredible film career. So could you also share with us a bit of a spoiler-free synopsis and tell us what drove you to write this femme fatale story?
Well, it's like I try to make every film like a debut film. I try to try a different genre every time. I'm like a film buff first. I'm a short filmmaker first, then a filmmaker, I think. So just like Tarantino, you could say, I like to try a little bit of a different genre every time. So making a revenge film, a martial arts film was always at the back of my head, but I felt like how it's like it requires a certain know-how, it requires a certain crew, a budget. But one of my biggest passions in life after cinema is martial arts, and especially grappling and jiu-jitsu. And the more I do jiu-jitsu, the more I play around with the choreography of grappling in my head. I said, you know what, like I can't make a movie with spinning hit kicks and this and that, but maybe I can do a movie with grappling. And it would make it much more realistic too. So getting inspired by the fight scenes from later David Cronenberg movies, like the fight scene in the bath, Turkish bath in Eastern Promises, and the fight scene in A History of Violence. Quick, swift, brutal, with plastic makeup and not very fancy, just messy grappling to the point. And with my jiu-jitsu black belt teacher and we made a little choreography, and I just set out to write a revenge film, but try to bring it home. Turkey has a very nasty record of femicides, not only femicides, just politically connected personal of all sorts. Unfortunately, the country is going through a very, very dark time for some time. And I just wanted to reflect on that. And this is what came out. So the synopsis very quickly. Sayara is an immigrant from Turkmenistan and working at a posh gym. And her sister is kind of flirting with the owner of the gym, who's politically connected, and the owner of the gym and his friends and kill, not necessarily rape, but very dark and sexually disturbing stuff happening. which is super intrinsic to my country's dynamics for the last couple of years, I think. And then Sayara just goes on a crazy rampage of revenge. It turns out that her father was teaching her in the ways of martial arts, some crazy stuff, anything from biting to eye gouging to all the necessary cardinal
Yes.
stuff.
Love it. It is just so good. It's a visual feast for sure. So with the opening shot, it starts out with this, poignant scene set to contemplative music, really hypnotic music. What inspired this specific choice? Because it does set the tone for the rest of the movie, which for me was dark, bleak, and without hope.
Like my composer, Volkan, we've been working with him for the past, 4 or 5 projects now. So we have great chemistry, okay. And we're both film buffs. And I think that particular music was influenced by a little paragraph from inside of all films, Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner.
Okay, yeah. Love that.
In that movie, there is this one little bit where it goes a very dark but also fairy tale-esque little thing. And I love that little bit. And I just gave that bit to Volkan. I said, Volkan, let's do this, but with some Eastern instruments. And and then maybe like a toy piano type of because this is like a children's Black Heart in the beginning. So that's how it came about. And throughout the film, there were several references for music, especially coming from Alejandra Aja's High Tension, Switchblade Romance in the UK title, as well as Snowtown, this Australian film called Snowtown, which was visually and sound-wise very inspiring for Sayara.
Hell yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, Soraya's character complexity is very fascinating. And once she begins her rampage, it's easy to at first think, well, wait a minute, she didn't have to go that far. But as the movie goes on, I began to think, okay, no, she has to do this. This evil is within her. It's been unleashed and it can't be put back. How were you able to balance her moral ambiguity with the audience's need to empathize with her quest for revenge?
That, I think you put it really interestingly precise. That was my biggest challenge. I wanted to really push the audience's association with this character. I wanted to have this character which is maybe a level beyond anti-hero. She's almost maybe like she was hiding this villain inside her, which comes out. And I didn't want to make a revenge film where you root for the hero. I wanted to make a revenge film where we see that, if you go for revenge, you have to dig 2 graves, as they say. So I wanted everything to get darker and more muddy as it progressed. Because even in the film, which I loved, Joker, the last Joker. Do you remember when he goes bad, he goes bad, he kills people, but he doesn't kill the dwarf. So even Joker has a conscience. But come on, once you've been really hurt, you've been hurt by the family and there's no justice, there's no hope. I wanted to make it as dark as the Mad Max movies, the early Mad Max movies, where nobody's going to be spared, and that's why it hurts, So, and also being a film buff myself, I'm very much interested with all the banned movies, censored movies, the most provocative movies, the most triggering movies. So, in my library, I'm a gourmet of the darkest films, and I kind of challenge myself with those movies throughout my 20s and 30s. So when I set out to make this movie, I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at my library and I'm going to be as dark as some of those movies there. For instance, Gaspar Noé movies. For instance, Brilliant Mendoza's Kinatai. For instance, Snowtown. For instance, the French extremity movies from the early 2000s, or Necromantic. So I wanted to really push it as far as a martial arts movie can go.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but the film touches on deep societal issues like violence against women in Turkey and Turkmenistan. How did you approach integrating these themes without overshadowing the narrative of the film?
Well, the narrative of the film, in a way, kind of comes within that. So even if if I wasn't purposely touching on any cases in Turkey, even if you just make it up, it will look like something because there are so many of them. But I had a couple of specific hashtags in mind when I was doing this. So it was like a combination of a couple of them. And unfortunately, the first half of the movie is based on true stories. The second half is a crazy revenge film, which I wish it was based in a way, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So to go along with that, revenge is a common theme in cinema. So how did you work to make Soraya's journey feel fresh and engaging despite the familiarity of the theme?
Yeah, I think my main motive was, as I said, making this an almost villain versus villain type of a revenge story.
Yes.
And even the sister, from a very conservative point of view, she's not innocent. Nobody's innocent in the film. Everybody, in a way,
exactly.
and the bad guys are not really that bad. It's just like they're in such a twisted society. They're just being, some of them are being very irresponsible, and they're being very it's just like the situation goes out of hand. It was kind of like a coincidence. The way it went so dark tells you more about the society rather than a singular personal thing. So I wanted everything to be as gray as possible, and also like the bad guy from Usual Suspects. I don't know if you remember, but like the guy throughout the film that you don't know who this bad guy is, but this bad guy is called Kaiser Soze. And Kaiser Soze, the mythology goes, when they corner him and when they take his family hostage, he first starts from killing his own family, and then he starts killing everybody else, and then he becomes this huge underworld mythology. So I wanted to have this Sayara as a kind of like a daughter of Kaiser Soze, like a female Kaiser Soze, like if she's pushed to the very corner, she can be the Dark Lord, she can be the Dark Princess of Darkness or something,
Yeah. Well, to get into your filmmaking techniques, you've masterfully used slow motion to heighten the emotional impact of scenes, just like you did in your 2016 movie, Baskin. The slow motion, I feel, is crucial in your movies because it adds to the buildup of tension and sorrow. In Saraya, this is over ongoing femicide, making it a mournful reflection on societal issues. What is your process for deciding when to use slow motion versus real-time action?
Well, we specifically used slow motion, I think, 3 little scenes before she flips and she just turns the situation over. And that was kind of like my visual cue for Sayara doing this little trick every time. But other than that, I think visually, I was very inspired to do a film with almost no tripod or dolly shots, almost fully handheld on the shoulder, and taking a page out of such filmmakers as Harmony Korine or early Nicholas Winding Refn's Pusher movies. So to give it a very, almost like a dogma kind of feeling, and also continuing the style during the editing, sometimes like leaving this type of like ending of the shots in there, sometimes like starting with them, and like losing and finding the action, in a way, this documentary style but verite style crime feeling. And that was my kind of like cinematographical alphabet for this movie. And first of all, this was the only way I could shoot this movie production-wise. Secondly, I think I used a lot of lights and dollies and macro shots in my first 2 movies. with my third and fourth film, I'm kind of like taking a break from that and like trying to make it more verite and more dynamic as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was that, and also we tried to make it look as grainy as possible with a good filmmaker friend of mine, Fredrik Hanna from Norway. He's an award-winning short filmmaker. He helped me with the color specifically, and my amazing colorist Andy Mineth. He also like helped me a lot with catching that early 90s, mid 90s Euro crime look, and combined with the Harmony Korine or Nicolas Hundewen type of like camera, I think cinematographically that's my most favorite movie. You know, like all my films that are similarly close to my heart, but cinematographically, this is, I feel, my more mature film. Although it looks cinematographically very raw, at times very flawed, but that many times that flawed, it was like a thing on purposely done, which kind of adds to the atmosphere of the film and the action of the film.
Totally. Yeah, I love the way it looks. It's perfect for the genre and the story and everything. I loved it. And to go a little bit, and to go a little bit off that, the film, the film often juxtaposes intense scenes with silence or a minimalist soundscape. What's the thought process behind this choice and its intended effect on the audience? Because for me, it creates a sort of vacuum that makes these moments feel more surreal.
Yes, I think anytime you play with the sound and music and lack of sound, music taking over a scene or something, it creates this dreamy feeling, which I love. And I think although we don't have, unlike my first two movies, Sayara doesn't have dream logic, but it has the vocabulary of dream logic in its scenes, which adds to and you kind of like share the psyche of the character, or you associate with the dread of the scene. And again, it is a grindhouse approach. It is a short filmmaker's low budget filmmaking indie approach, where you kind of cut corners from the sound editing, where like when character starts with a couple stabs or a couple hits and then sound goes away and then it's only music. And it's something I experimented and fell in love with during the early stages of being a short filmmaker, even because I edit my movies myself, and during editing, I try to make the sound edit as much as I can as well. And sometimes I just like take out the sound and put the music on, and like, oh, it looks really arty and looks really interesting. So that's it became my style in a way.
Very cool. Yeah, I love it. It's so impactful. I feel it every time. So there's this antelope mounted above the fireplace in the third act. And because it's so prominent in this room full of powerful men, I had to look into its symbolism. So with the antelope being associated with the earth element and symbolizing strength and incredible adaptability, was this set design a conscious choice and representative of Sayara in any way?
Well, I think I'm like sometimes when critics say that I'm an intuitive filmmaker, I like that. So I think that's how I approach things. Usually it comes from a very shallow and physical choice. In the script, I wanted the end of the film. It will be a bit of a spoiler, but like I wanted to have that antelope head there, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I wanted to have a reflection from the eye of the antelope at the wall, and that also kind of like associates with hunting. That associates with somebody watching. It associates with like nature, the survival of the fittest, many things. So like, it kind of fits with the picture in my head, so I put it there. But then it leads the way to such interpretations as you put it, which sounds awesome, which isn't necessarily in my head to begin with. But I think it's also like the choice I made in the paintings on the walls and everything. They kind of fall into places in an intuitive way, But the way I started putting them together was really like, okay, I want the last act of this film to be a tournament, because if you pay attention to I think by the end of the second act, the conflict kind of ends. She could kill them if she wanted, but no, she makes it a game. And the third act, the conflict stops, and the hero's journey kind of like comes to an abrupt. Like, this movie is not about hero's journey. This movie is, okay, in the third act, it's going to be a fucking crazy little tournament, and she's going to take them one by one, and then she's going to cheat and everything. So to make the environment, okay, this is like a living room, and I should be able to like lit fire in it, this and that. So that's how it kind of comes together.
Well, and going into that, what were some of your biggest challenges you faced during filming, especially during the action sequences? And were there any challenges during pre-production or post-production?
Well, the whole thing was this one big challenge, as if like it was like a to-do list of what's the most difficult thing that we can do, what's the most anti-commercial thing that we can do. It was almost like ticking all the boxes. So like starting from finding a girl who looks like she's from Central Asia, and because I didn't want to cast a Turkish girl for this role. Maybe I'm going to have a very flawed movie. Maybe I'm going to have a very, in a way, punk trash film, but the lead character has to be believable. And if I can't find a lead character from Central Asia, I'm not going to do this movie. But then I find this awesome Turkish girl who looks exactly like the part, and she has the shoulders of a wrestler as well as being a femme fatale, attractive. And I didn't want like to have a model type of girl. I wanted to have this presence as well as the beauty. And she was like she was amazing. And but I said, she's not coming from a cinema background at all. She has done a couple TV series, minor roles, and she has this beautiful big hair. I'm like, there's no way she's cutting her hair. There's no way. But the way things roll down, she turned out to be born for this role, and she agreed to cut her hair, and she literally cut her hair in that scene, and we were all almost in tears. By the end, when she cut it off. So that was a big challenge. But as soon as we locked the main character, and like we're looking at ourselves, like with my first AD and line producer, we're like, but oh my God, how are we going to find the elder sister, who's going to look similar to her? And she's going to make a very daring role. It's not easy, especially in Turkey, to play these like promiscuous scenes as well as violence in it. And it's not a Netflix movie. It's not a film with a famous actor. So for the actresses to play this role, there is not really a commercial support that they can put there behind us. So this is super indie waters. And so the reward that they're going to get is not going to really be materialistic in a way. So it was really but then I was so lucky that I was able to find Özgül. She was a darling. She was amazing. She was a trooper. So the casting. So as soon as you ask me this, the casting is the first thing that comes to my mind. But also on the set, every single day we were doing something physical that the 95% of the set has never experienced before. So the cast and crew that I shot my film are super interesting and quirky people. All of them weird and interesting in their own right. But the experience level on the set is like a TV commercial set, the cast and crew is the kind of people who do TV commercials, like, soap or detergent. You don't have any other martial arts movie in Turkey. You don't have another violence movie. You don't have these type of films, unfortunately, here in the last couple of years. So people don't have that know-how, but I try to find the people that connect with me in a way which kind of, we're talented, much more talented than I am in their own fields, and then they share the vision with me, and then we try to find it in the dark, together. So that is a beautiful, adventurous feeling, but also it's very risky, and you have to have plan B, plan C at all times when things don't work. But it also creates a great camaraderie and a circus type of feeling, a freak show feeling in the set. Everybody's like, people, they bond together, and like from day 2 or 3, people look at each other and like, we're doing something unique and special in this part of the world. So that's a very difficult but also emotionally rewarding part of the whole thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just such a good movie. And coming off of Baskin, they're very different movies, but also you can compare them and find the similarities between the two of them as well. But both of them are just high on my list of just top horror movies for me. They're wonderful.
Awesome. Great to
Is there
hear
anything else? Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Sayara before we move on to talking about your future project? Yeah.
Did I send you a link for the behind the scenes?
You didn't, not yet.
Okay, I have to. As soon as this, I'll send you a little, because I did this little behind the scenes featurette for 30 minutes or something. I think you would really dig it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I would love that.
Yeah, I think we recently signed with a distribution company from US, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it yet, but it's going to be announced in the next coming up. Because when I was doing this movie, I wasn't aware how far away we've come from the early 90s sensibilities of filmmaking, where everything is much more safer and everything is much more closer to digital platforms, formulaic way of filmmaking. Okay, the mainstream is gone. Okay, I accept that, but I didn't realize and now I look around, even the horror movies, all these festivals I've been, only there are 2 or 3 other films which I watched which had a mean spirit like Sayara had, Substance. Okay, very cool movie, but I think it's a comedy. All these other films like that I've seen in the festivals, you come out with a little smirk in your face. I love those type of horror movies too, but the real horror movies, like the DVD label of Tartan DVD comes to my mind. Tartan Extreme. There was this amazing label from early 2000s, and when you were a teenager in the 90s, in your DVD library, you only were cool if you had like all those 18 logos in your DVD. So the horror used to belong to kids. And mainstream was full of movies like 7 and 8 millimeter and Bone Collector, these like really demented films, but done with heart and done with a gusto, So, and all those films that I said, like Harmony Korine movies or early 2000 Tartan movies, there was the big, much even in I think 2015, there was a wider window for that. So I was a bit disappointed when people said, "Oh, there's violence against women in your film. That's why we can't have it in our festival, or in our label, or we can't market this in our platform." Because Sayara is exactly done from a screaming, rebellious heart coming from all those like darkness from which is connected to that. So in a way. Yeah. Kind of like a self-censoring and self-hurting safe format that I found myself in. But despite that, I was super lucky that we had many festival runs and we had many festival screenings, and we have some even more coming up. And we sold the film to Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, Germany, and recently to US. But still, like all my favorite festivals that played my Baskin and Housewife, like Fright Fest, Fantastic Fest, Sitges, they all passed, and they like in their replies, they were very cold, almost as if like I've done something, very, wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
well, if Terrifier can make it, yours can make it too in the US and other places.
On the contrary, I find Terrifier super shallow, and that is horror too, but it's the lowest form of horror. Sure. And that type of movie becoming very famous says a lot about the way things are. I mean, even from a very horror gourmet point of view, I would like to argue about Substance as well. Like Substance, as much as I enjoy it, when when it's hailed that much, but that like we can't even get there, because there's like it's so much more safer and so much more formulaic. Like talking about substance becomes irrelevant, I mean, so yeah, there's more to talk about that, I think there.
All right. So we talked about this earlier too. More and more movies are getting a remake done in another language almost immediately after the original film's released. Some examples would be Wreck, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Speak No Evil. And it's been announced that you'll be making the Turkish remake of The Coffee Table, which I am over the moon about. The original was on my top 10 horror movie list of 2024.
Really?
And I cannot think of a better director to take on this incredibly tragic story. So yes, what are you able to share with us about this new project?
Well, I think if it was announced that I was doing an English Hollywood remake of Coffee Table, it would be much more prestigious for me. It would make much more money for me, but it wouldn't be an exciting news. It would be some news that I wouldn't care about, because I've never even cared to watch the American remake of Speak No Evil, and I heard that it ends on a good note. So no way. I even refuse to watch Let Me In because I love Let the Right One In so much, But this particular film, I think, first of all, I think it's super rare that you get a Spanish festival film remade by a Turkish independent director with Turkish box office actors. Like we made this film. It's almost like Uncut Gems. Adam Sandler playing in Uncut Gems. We have the biggest Turkish box office comedy draw, which has never done a serious movie before. He's a master of silly comedies in Turkey, which are like big in the box office, but this is the first time that he's doing something, and he shines. He's an amazing actor. I think the director of The Coffee Table, hopefully he's going to appreciate and applaud the acting in my film, if not anything else. And I think he's going to be super happy because it's done with as loyal to the original as possible, but with some of my own twists. And I always thought about this interview with David Cronenberg about The Fly, and he was saying by the time he got the script of The Fly, there were so many Cronenbergian elements in it, and that's exactly how I feel it. So the guy who connected me to this project, Pablo Guiza, who is the kind of the mastermind behind the Turkish Coffee Table, as we call it right now. It's not the official title yet, but we call it the Turkish Coffee Table right now. When he told me this is the kind of film I think it would be amazing if it was made by you, I was like, why? Okay, but this is a single location film. I'll just give it a shot. And then after I watched it, I'm like, oh, okay, that because it makes full circle because I have all these similar elements with a newborn baby and everything in my previous short films, and the way the male character in a family confronted by society, responsibility against society. It's very, very interesting. I think I'm going to go as far as saying when the story is done in a Turkish society, it immediately becomes more interesting. Because of the family aspect, because of the wife and husband aspect, it immediately becomes more interesting. And I think I can only say that much at this point, but yeah, I'm super excited about it, and I can't wait.
Hell yeah, I cannot wait either. And when do you think that'll get released, in 25 or 26?
I think 25 is. I think it's going to do a similar festival run in terms of period to Sayara, and there's going to be an announcement at Cannes Film Festival in the Fantastic Pavilion, where we had the deal in the first place, because last year Sayara was in Fantastic Pavilion at Cannes Festival, and it was there where Pablo Guiza told us about this project and where it all came to fruition.
Very cool. Well, I cannot wait. Well, that is all I have for you, John. Thank you again so much for doing this. And, we'll hopefully be getting Soraya here in the US very soon. So, Stardust, when it does get released, run to go see it. You are going to love this one. And until next time, Stardust, peace.
Take care and thank you so much.